Welcome back. We're now hearing from the SEC chairperson about tokenizing everything and the agency's commitment to advancing tokenization. This is we're also seeing ETFs getting launched, interoperability protocols getting more and more traction in cross-border payments and capital flow from one chain to another. And so there's a lot going on in the crypto space. We are at all-time record highs. The timeline on this channel has been basically we've been calling the top. There's a lot of things that we've been talking about in this channel. And in today's video, we're going to be exploring what the regulatory framework looks like, where the market is, where the market's going. And we're going to be starting right here. I asked Grok, which is the XAI platform. In the last 7 years, Congress faced debt ceiling issues during the summer months with these outcomes. Now, we've been hearing about this big, beautiful bill. It's going through the House, it's going through the Senate, but it really looks like they're not going to actually pass it. And so this is a spending bill, right? And so a lot of people have been saying, Cryptoviser, how could we be at the top of the market? They're about to print all this money. The Federal Reserve is about to cut the interest rates. While this is, yes, speculation. We don't know this for sure because it hasn't yet occurred. And so I asked Grok to kind of give us some history into spending bills getting passed, August recess for Congress. And this is what Grok said. In 2019, there was no spending bill passed, but the debt ceiling was suspended in the end of July before their August recess for Congress. 2021, the debt ceiling was raised in October of 2021. Before their recess, no full spending bill was passed. And then in 2023, the Fiscal Responsibility Act passed in June, suspending the debt ceiling, and also they did that first Fiscal Responsibility Act was actually a spending bill. So if you look here, the two previous times that we had no spending bill actually passing in Congress, and the debt ceiling getting raised, these were actually bearish if you look at the price activity around this time. And I'm going to show you guys the chart in a minute. We know what happened in 2021. October 7th, they raised the debt ceiling, but had no full spending bill in 2021. What happened at the beginning of November? That was the top of the market, right? Even though there was all this positive sentiment in the crypto space, that was the top of the market. But I'm really more focused on 2019 because 2019, this occurred around the same time frame that we're in right now. We've had a huge run up into crypto prices since the beginning of, the end of 2024 into 2025. We had a little bit of a correction and we've been going back up since. But what if this bill doesn't get passed? Well, let's kind of go back to this time frame that we just got quoted from Grok. And then we're going to get into some of the more macro news of what's happening with Solana, what's happening with some of these ETFs, the battle between OpenAI and Robinhood and Ripple and the XRP conversation. And by the way, this is the Cryptoviser podcast. Make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We upload every single day. Sometimes we do deep dives into individual cryptos or just the macro market like what we're doing today. So make sure you guys are subscribed. Give the video a thumbs up. You can also become a channel member by clicking the join button down below here on YouTube to learn more. And so if we look at 2019, right? You can see that in the beginning of 2019, there was a massive run-up in the price of Bitcoin, right? From February of $3,400 all the way to the end of June at $13,000, right? So that's basically a 4x, right? That's a big move. That happened in 2019. And I don't remember all the sentiment that was going on in 2019. We could probably do a little bit of a deeper dive into that, but it doesn't really matter. We're really looking at the macro, the zoomed out picture for this conversation. So again, Grok said that the debt ceiling the limit was raised at the end of July, but there was no spending bill. And so again, if we look at the price action, right, we had a run up into the middle of 2019, and then we started to see a little bit of, wobbliness in July, which was probably when we were kind of in the same situation we're in right now with the Congress debating whether they're going to pass the bill or not. And people were probably very bullish that they were going to pass the spending bill and there would be more money getting printed. But did that actually occur? Well, No, according to Grok, it didn't. They just raised the debt ceiling to continue to pay for things, but they didn't have a new budget or a new spending bill. And so what happened to the price of Bitcoin? It started to go down. And then we had a little bit of a jump after the debt ceiling was raised, but really the macro trend for the second half of that year was down, right? So we went from the end of June, $13,000, all the way to the middle of December at $7,000, basically a 50% drop. Because if they're not spending more money, the situation that we're in is basically the same fiscal situation that we've been in for the last couple of months or year or whatever it's been. And so the way that I view this is kind of looking at this plus everything else we're about to talk about, which could potentially indicate we are close or near the top of the market. So now we're hearing, amidst all of the positive sentiment, all of the positive regulatory environment, we're now hearing the SEC hit the pause button on Grayscale's XRP, Solana, and Cardano ETF conversion, also known as the Grayscale Digital Large Cap Fund. This is kind of a blended fund with multiple different cryptos in it. It's been around for multiple years. Right now they have Bitcoin, Ether, XRP, Solana, and ADA in it. Very small percentage of ADA. A little bit of Solana, a little bit more XRP, but mostly Bitcoin and then Ethereum. So let's understand what in the Grayscale is going on here. Well, put away those champagne bottles. The SEC has not greenlit trading for a Grayscale focused not just on Bitcoin. On Tuesday, Wall Street regulator issued an order finding that it had good cause to approve an ETF conversion for the Grayscale product. But quietly, they attached to the order a letter from the SEC leadership stating or pausing or staying or pausing the order indefinitely, saying until the commission orders otherwise. ETF analyst at Bloomberg was the first to point out the fine print in the letter. So you can see right here, it says this letter is to notify you that the commission will review the delegated action in accordance, It said it can be found here on their website. We have a few theories as to why this happened. He said the SEC doesn't want to let anything launch under this 19B4 process until they officially approve or come up with some framework for digital assets in the ETF wrapper. Interesting. Because we do have a Bitcoin ETF, we have an Ethereum ETF, and by the way, we also have a Solana ETF. Let me come back to this story in just a second, but Doge Toshi posted this on X saying, am I the only one who didn't see a single person on their timeline talk about the first Solana ETF going live? No, Doge Toshi, you are not the only one. I only saw and knew about the Solana ETF, and I follow crypto very heavily. I only saw this because of Doge Toshi's post about this. The first spot Solana staking ETF is officially live, a healthy start for trading for a new ETF with about $8 million in trading in the first 20 minutes. Yeah, this is called the Rex Osprey's Solana staking ETF. It overcame SEC hurdles and posted a $33 million first day volume. And so this is on the CBOE BZX exchange. Now, here's the deal. I've said this many times before, and a lot of people are not paying attention. The CBOE, when they launch crypto products, historically, it's been very bearish. In 2017, the CBOE launched Bitcoin futures the day that the market topped out. I think they launched it December 12th or something like that. And you could see the market topped out then. Then they discontinued the Bitcoin futures sometime in like 2019 or something like that. And then in 2021, what did they do? They relaunched Bitcoin futures that was SEC approved. And then what happened at the end of 2021? The market topped out. And so these are generally bearish signals. But, the other thing is nobody's really talking about it, which is kind of odd as well. And $33 million, when you're talking about the grand scheme of crypto, is really not that much money. And so what could be going on here is exhaustion, right? The market has been bullish for a very long time. Solana has went from $8 to $250, then come back down to where we are today. And by the way, there's a lot of other things going on in Solana. Solana treasury firm DeFi Development Corporation disclosed a $112 million private placement deal to fund Solana purchases. So let's understand a little bit more about this. DeFi Development Corp has disclosed the details of their $112 million private placement funding operation to purchase tokens, including financial arrangement called a prepaid forward that will offer investors a way to hedge their risk. According to an announcement, the firm has secured an aggregate principal of that much money, worth approximately $132 million if the initial purchase exercised their full options, which is expected to close at the beginning of July. The notes carry an interest rate of 5.5% per year, payable semi-annually, and will mature in 2030. They'll also feature a 10% conversion premium to the $21 closing price on July 1. Basically, they're talking about the price of the stock. Now, you guys can see DeFi Development Corp, DFDV, on the stock market. A lot of fluctuations in this coin. In this stock. You guys have to understand, we are in the midst of a bull run, and we are literally at all-time record highs in a lot of these cryptocurrencies, including Solana. I mean, Solana may not be at the all-time record high of, $260, but it's still pretty much up there, right? It's significantly higher than the cycle low of $8. And so all of these companies buying all these coins, the market caps that we're seeing in the stocks are already at a premium to what the underlying coins are. We see this with MicroStrategy, Semler Scientific, all the major treasury companies. But they were in a bull market. What happens in a bear market? I don't know, but it's going to be very interesting to see, because a lot of these projects that have launched on the stock market have done incredibly well from increase in price perspective. But back to the grayscale thing. A few theories are floating around Wall Street. The Bloomberg analyst himself said that potentially the SEC did not want to deny Grayscale the ETF application before the deadline, but also currently developing an internal framework for issuing digital asset ETFs. And they don't want to approve Grayscale's fund until the framework is ready for showtime. Another top ETF analyst at Bloomberg concurred with this reading of the events. Now, from my understanding, there is a conversation in Congress about the market structure bill, which they're expecting to pass this year. If they're actually going to do it, I don't know. Imagine they don't do it. Imagine it doesn't get passed, which is very likely, especially if the spending bill doesn't get passed. They'll just push everything off till next year. So if they don't pass it, this is going to be very bearish for the market, because you have to understand, guys, the market is pricing all of these things in. The market is pricing in the spending bill, the debt ceiling, more money printing, the interest rates going down, the Federal Reserve changing course. And we are not seeing any signals that this is actually going to happen, which is very similar to 2019. And so I'm not saying it's never going to happen. It just may not happen for many months. And so the market, all the bullishness in the market will disappear and fade away. And the fact that we're already at all-time record highs and all of this is going on, all of this massive buying, it's like a rush. People, I'm already feeling the FOMO, even though I'm in this market every day. We're talking about the market every day. I feel the FOMO. Like, I feel it. And so people are going to say, but Cryptoviser, retail hasn't even joined the party. No, they have. They have. Just look at the stocks. Look at the ETFs. Look at everybody's sentiment, on social media about where the markets are and where the markets are going. Everybody's very bullish. And meanwhile, people are completely missing the point that Solana ETF staking has already been approved. Companies are now buying Ethereum. And everybody's still focused on Bitcoin. Solana, XRP, the coins that have already pumped enormously and outperformed a lot of the other cryptos that have real fundamental value under them, like Ethereum, Ethereum Layer 2s, Arbitrum. We're going to be talking about that in just a few minutes here, but let's start with Chainlink. So Chainlink posted this, saying more institutional capital is flowing into Solana, stronger connections to other blockchain ecosystems, and supercharged Solana smart contracts via cross-chain messaging and programmable token transfers. Sergey Nazarov, the founder of Chainlink, explains why Chainlink's cross-chain interoperability protocol on Solana is a game changer. Let's listen to what he says. And by the way, you guys know, if you watch my videos, interoperability is the key to everything in crypto. And we're now basically almost in 2026, and there's still cryptos in the top 50 that have no interoperability. These coins deserve to be out of the top 100, if not the top 200. They should not even be considered an investment, period, especially if they're a siloed blockchain and have no interconnectivity. XRP was in this category until a few weeks ago when they got USDC and Circle's blessing and they launched on XRP Ledger. Because before that, XRP had no interoperability. And so all of this bullishness about XRP, I'm like, wait, they don't even have the basic technological baseline for this kind of technology. Well, now they at least have Circle. Anyway, let's listen to Sergey Nazarov from Chainlink. And don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up. I upload every single day of the year. You can check out my other videos on the channel. Also, make sure you're subscribed. That way you never miss any of the new videos, which we upload every single day. Let's listen to Sergey.
CCIP on Solana is pretty exciting because it means the institutional capital that CCIP already connects to various other chains can now go to Solana. That's exciting for the institutional capital because many of the Solana use cases and the Solana applications can provide certain levels of speed and other things around liquidity and trading time and execution that is attractive to those institutions. Then you also have the connection of Solana to various public chains, and its connection to these public chains means that all of the different stablecoins and applications on those public chains can now use the Solana system. Also, the ability to send messages and do programmable token transfers, I think expands what all these other smart contracts on all these other chains can do on Solana without necessarily having to go directly onto Solana and learning all the nuance and details of it. So they can utilize all the DeFi protocols, all the trading protocols through programmable token transfers, and they can program the token to do something on Solana. Greatly expands the scope of all of the smart contracts and institutional use cases that can access Solana and make use of its great applications, infrastructure, speed, settlement times, all these great properties that Solana delivers.
Now, what's important to note about what Sergey is saying is this is really why interoperability is key and is so important into the future. It's because these blockchains, they cannot all do the same things. They don't all have the same capabilities. They don't have all the same backing. They don't have all the same trust. And so if you look at maybe a coin like, Solana versus another coin that's connected to Chainlink, let's say maybe Ethereum. Right now you're able to get all of the value, all of the data, all of the actual technological breakthroughs that are on Ethereum, also on Solana and back and forth. If Internet Computer was connected to Chainlink's interoperability protocol, you would be able to utilize the AI capabilities, the hosting and storage on-chain capabilities of Internet Computer through these other chains. So these other chains don't have to develop all this technology. They can just bridge and borrow it from the other ecosystems. This is very different than what we've seen in the past, where blockchains, especially the legacy blockchains, they are always behind because they're always trying to catch up to what these newer blockchains are able and capable of doing. But now they don't need to actually always be behind because they can just connect to these other chains and utilize the newer chains' potential better capabilities or more advanced features on their actual chain, right? It's kind of like, you use Venmo, and Venmo can connect to multiple different banks, right? You don't have to utilize JP Morgan Chase's app to send money. You can use Venmo, which then connects to your actual bank. So it's really interesting to see all of that playing out in the Solana ecosystem. But there's also a lot of other things going on in crypto, because really the interoperability and what Sergey was talking about was a lot having to do with tokenization, right? Programmable token transfers. The majority of crypto ecosystem, when they think tokens, they're thinking of like meme coins or NFTs or anything like that. But we're moving into a new world of really just tokenization. You guys saw this with Robinhood's recent, I guess, foray into the crypto world. Well, now this is causing even more drama as OpenAI is saying Robinhood's tokens are not equity in the company. What in the Robinhood is going on here? Let's find out. So OpenAI is distancing itself from Robinhood's latest crypto push after the trading platform Robinhood began offering tokenized shares of OpenAI and SpaceX to users in Europe. They said these, well, actually, I'll just show you the tweet if it's going to pull up. Yeah, it says these AI tokens are not OpenAI equity. We did not partner with Robinhood. We're not involved in this and do not endorse it. Any transfer of OpenAI equity requires our approval. We didn't approve any transfer. Please be careful. Now, this all stems from the fact that Robinhood is providing access to OpenAI equity through these tokenized shares. And when I first saw this, I was like, whoa, what in the is going on here? But really what it seems like Robinhood was able to do, because keep in mind, OpenAI is not a public company. When I'm recording this video, they're a private company. And I think they're still nonprofit, right? But they're planning on becoming a for-profit company and then going public, which is the spat between OpenAI's Sam Altman and Elon Musk, because Elon Musk doesn't want it to be a for-profit, and he was a very early and heavy investor in OpenAI. But Sam Altman now wants the company to be a for-profit and go public, which is going to be very interesting to see how this all plays out, right? But effectively what Robinhood did was pretty freaking genius. What Robinhood effectively has done is provided access to their customers to private equity. And so this tweet came out from OpenAI, and then this tweet came out where Elon responded to the OpenAI statement about not partnering with Robinhood about this and be careful. Elon Musk said, your equity is fake. So then they got me thinking, okay, clearly Elon is taking a shot at OpenAI, but let's learn a little bit more so that we can really kind of break this down and what's going on here. And by the way, these are all top signals. These are all top signals. When you have companies like the largest technological companies in the world fighting with each other, these are top signals, 100%. So keep that in mind. And by the way, it's not just happening with OpenAI. It's happening with these ETF issuers. It's happening with the Bitcoin treasury companies. They're all getting involved at the all-time record highs. Anyway, Robinhood Communications responded and said, to cap off our crypto event, we announced a limited stock token giveaway on OpenAI and SpaceX to eligible European customers. These tokens give retail investors indirect exposure to private markets, opening up access, and are enabled by Robinhood's ownership stake in a special purpose vehicle. Interesting. Vlad also responded. He said, we announced the limited stock giveaway, While it is true that they aren't technically equity, you can see the precise dynamics and the terms for those interested. The tokens effectively give retail investors exposure to these private assets. Our giveaway plants a seed for something much bigger. And since our announcement, we've just been hearing from many private companies that are eager to join us in the tokenization revolution. Thank you. Whoa. So a lot of drama here. But David Hoffman from Bankless, right, the Ethereum maximalists, he basically said speculation. During the presentation, Vlad Tenev, and by the way, David was at the actual presentation, like physically at the presentation, and I think he even interviewed Vlad. He said Vlad specifically mentioned having a relationship with a wealthy investor with OpenAI and SpaceX shares. These shares could likely be under the original investor's name, either an individual or an entity, which OpenAI has already approved the original sale. Robinhood and that investor could have a private agreement between each other that OpenAI would not need to approve. Still, OpenAI and the private company resistance to their shares being traded on accessible venues is a real friction for Robinhood. And not just Robinhood, by the way, it's really for the whole ecosystem of what is happening here. Because it goes into the whole conversation about tokenization. Tokenization is a new way of doing things. And historically, there was no access to these private markets. And so companies didn't even have to worry about this. But you guys know, when Elon gets involved, you can't say, well, we've never done this before, because Elon's going to say, well, that doesn't give me a reason why we can't do it today. I mean, a lot of people who even watch my videos, if you work at legacy companies, right, it is almost impossible to get anything adjusted, anything changed, anything new, because everything is just kind of like entrenched. This is why I think that the DOGE, Department of Government Efficiency, had so many issues with everything. Because yes, I'm sure there's a lot of waste, fraud, and abuse. I'm sure there's a lot of lazy employees, but there's also a lot of good employees who just need the little push of like, hey, we need to do this for the people that are paying our salaries through their taxes, right? We need to do a better job. We need to be more efficient. We have to do things a little bit faster, a little bit better, right? But imagine Doge never was a conversation. It would just be more of the same thing over and over and over. And so when you have people coming in and challenging the system, and not only challenging the system, but challenging the beliefs about how equity is distributed, it's very interesting. And the fact that Elon, he's probably the private person, right? He probably has whatever the percentage is, right? Let's just say he has 10% ownership in OpenAI and maybe 30 or 40% ownership in SpaceX, right? To somebody like me or you, like, you're like, wow, that doesn't seem like that much, but it's a lot of equity, right? And so he can basically take his equity and say, okay, I'm going to share it amongst the investors, right? If you want to invest in this, you can invest in it. It's going to be mine, but I'm going to promise to give you whatever the ownership is once they do go public or the stock starts trading or whatever the situation is. I mean, I don't know why they would need permission from OpenAI to do that. That's just the same thing like if I were to purchase a company and I had 100 investors behind me, right? You don't care where the money is necessarily coming from. You just want to know that the deal is going to be done and that I have the money to do it. And so it is very interesting to see how this is playing out. And I'm sure Robinhood went to the SEC. I'm sure they went to the regulators to get approval for this. The regulators aren't going to go to OpenAI and say, is this okay if Elon does this? Right? But this is probably what's going on. And this is giving not only Elon access to effectively cash out before OpenAI goes public, but also kind of take a shot at OpenAI and say, you really want to do this? Let's do it. I'm going to front run you. I'm going to sell the shares before you guys can even get in the market. And so why is this an issue? Well, for the OpenAI investors, they're not like the company's not public. It's not publicly being traded yet. And so the other investors, if they want to get out of their position, maybe they won't be able to until they do kind of move on or sell their position out to somebody else. But the other thing is they may not go public for years. And so Elon is able to capitalize on his ownership now while they won't be able to. So it's a very interesting dynamic. But even the SEC chairman himself, Paul Atkins, is saying tokenization is an innovation and the agency, the SEC, is committed to advancing it. So is this part of that? Well, let's listen to what Paul Atkins says here. And by the way, don't forget to give this video a free thumbs up. Let's listen to the SEC chairman.
Tokenization is an innovation. And we at the SEC should be focused on how do we advance innovation in the marketplace. And so I would argue here over the last several years, the SEC has been standing athwart efforts to innovate in the marketplace because things have been unclear. The rules have not been clear. We've had regulation through enforcement. That day is over. We are now, my whole goal is to make things transparent, from the regulatory aspect, and give people a firm foundation upon which to innovate
Right.
and to come out with new products, and so that they know what they're doing.
And guys, this video, I think was the same day that we started hearing this. And by the way, Vlad, the CEO of Robinhood, posted this with the eyeballs. So I'm sure this is all part of the same thing. And whether OpenAI likes it or not, I personally, I believe in free markets. And so if I hold a share of a company, even if I'm not able to sell it on the open market, I should still be able to sell it in a private sale, right? Friend, family, business partner, another investor. This is how the markets operate anyway. When you sell a share on the stock market, somebody else buys it. When you sell crypto, somebody else buys it. And so what is the difference in doing private and public? And so OpenAI, maybe in part of the agreement, I don't know what the documents look like. I'm sure they're pretty extensive, but I'm sure also the regulatory agencies probably approve this. The lawyers probably approve this, and they probably looked at the terms from the ownership of whoever this private investor is that is giving access. But just understanding like the level that this is at and the amount of money we're talking about here, I would imagine it has to be Elon, right? So really interesting stuff. Let me know what you guys think about that. By the way, Wu Blockchain said, according to Arbiscan, which is Arbitrum Scan, Arbitrum is the blockchain that Robinhood chose to use. In addition to OpenAI tokens, Robinhood has set metadata for 79 deployed stock tokens, including shares of Robinhood, Trump Media Technology Group, as well as ETFs like Schwab Dividend Equity ETF and Yield Max's MSTR option strategy, which we have talked about prior. And by the way, you know, all this conversation about the tokenization of these OpenAI shares, it's not yet in the US. This is only for European users. And so it's kind of outside the reach of the SEC, at least at this point. But it may be actually changing. And I would imagine Robinhood wouldn't roll this out unless they have they have it in the pipeline to get this in the US as well. We'll have to wait and see. Anyway, there's also more drama going on, this time with X stocks. And again, all of this drama occurring, right? We're seeing these companies moving very rapidly. We're doing this, we're doing this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. The crypto ecosystem sees this as very bullish, and it is. But when you go very fast, you also break things. You have these arguments, you have these disagreements, and this can cause uncertainty. Going back to what we said at the beginning of the video and what Grok told us, if we don't get a spending bill, even if they raise the debt ceiling, based on the previous cycles, when they did raise the debt ceiling but didn't have a spending bill, what happened? The market dropped. 2019 that happened, 2021 that happened. Now we're in 2025 and we're going to see if it happens. But anyway, X stocks are going live, tokenized stocks for the DeFi era. Over 60 tokenized stocks are coming to Bybit, Kraken, and Solana DeFi through X stocks. And so the next step for crypto is over 60 stocks are going to be trading on those three, a trading experience with global accessibility and the speed of the blockchain. Household names will be freely transferable and available 24/7. X stocks accelerate the convergence of crypto and traditional finance as equities are tokenized and crypto companies go public. X stocks bridges these worlds, offering a selection of tokenized stocks from both the emerging and established crypto firms, alongside blue chip giants, from newly launched tickers like Circle to well-known coins like Coinbase, and crypto accumulation stocks like MicroStrategy or DeFi Development Corp. Users can access crypto companies as they were meant to, on-chain. And so Kraken launched X stocks, right? Basically beginning of July. They said we're beginning a phased rollout of tokenized US stocks and ETFs powered by BACKED. BACKED. X stock innovation for eligible non-US clients. So again, non-US clients, but we just heard from Paul Atkins, the SEC chair, that they're going to try to push this forward. And so Wu Blockchain said, according to LinkedIn, the three co-founders of Backed Finance, which is pushing X stocks, the company behind the recently popularized tokenizer issuer X stocks, all had their last work experience from the now defunct DAO stack. According to ICO Drops data, DAO stacks raised nearly $30 million in private rounds, pre-sales, and ICOs from 2017 into 2018. At the end of 2022, DAO Stack announced its closure because it had run out of money. Now, here's the deal. I mean, 2017 into 2018, that was the ICO craze. There was a lot that went on, a lot of money that was raised, a lot of money that went to zero effectively. And Wu Blockchain said the Xstock team previous project, DAO Stack Gen, never saw its token price reach the funding price at its peak. It crashed significantly in May of 2021 and has since gradually approached near zero. And so what Wu Blockchain is saying doesn't necessarily mean bad, because remember, if you're a business person or a trader in the markets, you're not going to be right 100% of the time. You're not going to succeed 100% of the time. You're going to fail at things. This is like when you hear things like, you know, the president, people say, oh, well, he couldn't even run a casino. It's like, well, a lot of other business people couldn't run casinos either. But just because he failed in the casino industry doesn't mean that he failed in every industry that he worked. I mean, if you're running a business with 100 different industries, or you go through 100 different businesses in your lifetime, you're going to fail probably a lot, right? I would say probably 20 times out of 100 you're going to fail, maybe even more than that. But you only need one good trade to win. So I don't necessarily see it as a bad thing, but it is something to keep in mind. You know, we're in the bull market. There's a lot of launches going on. Are all these launches going to succeed? Are all of them going to do well? Probably not, which brings us to Ripple. Now, we just covered this the other day. There was a company called Link2, which is from previous cycles, where they basically did something similar to, I guess, what Robinhood is doing with tokenized shares of private equity, basically selling shares to companies that were not yet public, like Ripple, right? So Link2 was selling Ripple shares. From what I understand, Brad, well, I'll just read you what Brad wrote. He said, to be clear, on Ripple's end, what we know from our records is Link2 owns about 4.7 million shares of Ripple, solely purchased on the secondary market from other Ripple shareholders, but never directly from Ripple. Apart from Link2 being a shareholder, Ripple has never had any business relationship with them, nor have they participated in financing rounds. And so, by the way, Link2 is a company that's now, I think, about to head into bankruptcy. And so all the shares of all the companies that people owned, that they bought on the secondary market in this private equity pool, they may not get it, right? That there's a lot of stuff going on with Link2. We're not really going to talk about most of it on this channel because I don't know if it's really that widespread of an issue to be talking about. But it's something to keep in mind, because this is effectively, Link2 was tokenizing shares in private equity, the same thing that Robinhood is doing now. But what Brad said after that tweet is what you guys need to pay attention to, because this goes right back into my thesis that people are way, way, way too bullish on XRP. I'm bullish on Ripple for sure. I think, guys, I've said this over and over and over on this channel. What Ripple has done, I mean, they deserve the success that they have, because everything that the XRP army said that Ripple needs to do and should do, right? Becoming a global payment system, being the payment rails, go into financial institutions, they're doing, and they've done. Like, out of all the crypto companies, I would not sleep on Ripple. But Ripple and XRP are two separate things. And even Brad says this for the 90 millionth time. He said, it seems my posts raised a few more questions. He said, first off, XRP and shares of Ripple are very different things. Bingo! They are. Now, we'll get back to this in just a minute. He said, this post is only about shares in Ripple. Link2 is a very separate company that bought shares in Ripple from one of our existing shareholders. It should be reassuring that we at Ripple are able to confirm that Link2 owns 4.7 million shares of Ripple. He said, I have no idea how Link2 managed the participants to whom they sold these units of Ripple shares. And thus, he said he can't provide any assurance about their business practices or how they'll handle it now. He said the good news is that the value of Ripple shares has increased significantly over time, and there should be considerable gains on those shares for Link2 holders in Ripple. So let's go back to this first part. XRP and shares of Ripple are very different things. Brad is not lying. The XRP army knows this. Many of you know this. But I can't get why the XRP army believes the price is going to keep going higher. Right? But Cryptoviser, they're going to have an XRP ETF. But Cryptoviser, banks are going to buy XRP. But Cryptoviser, Swift is going to use XRP. Even if all those things are true, where are they getting the XRP from, right? Like if you buy Bitcoin, like this is the same thing we're asking about these Bitcoin treasury companies, right? They keep buying all this Bitcoin, but we don't see the markets moving. Why? Because they're not buying it on the market. They're buying it in private sales. All of this video, we've been talking about private sales, private equity, private tokenized, private shares tokenized, right? Selling shares that Ripple didn't even approve. Like this is all about private equity. This is private money. We have private money now intermixing into crypto. Even not directly, right? Because like with the Robinhood thing, with OpenAI, like this is not a direct relationship. Because OpenAI is not crypto, it's not blockchain, but it's being done in crypto as like this is the most revolutionary technology ever. And maybe it is. But it seems like there's a lot of friction going on right now. Like a lot of friction. And by the way, the private equity markets entering crypto is like, as you can see, it gets very messy. Very messy, right? Ripple and Link2. Well, it's really Link2. It's not Ripple, but it's their shares and Link2. Potential shareholders. OpenAI and Robinhood and Elon. Right? This is all about private placement. The Bitcoin treasury companies. They want you to think that it's about you, but it's not. They don't even know who you are. It's about private equity. It's about private money. It's about them getting rich. And you guys have to pay attention to that because Ripple still owns 36.5 billion XRP. And so when ETF launches, where's the ETF buying the XRP from? Directly from Ripple. Ripple gets, an IPO. Guess who gets the money for that? Guess who's getting shares for that? Not you, not the XRP army. But meanwhile, don't get it twisted. The XRP army, if Ripple IPOs, they're going to buy the Ripple stock because they think that there's a flywheel between XRP and Ripple. But I'm letting you guys know right now, I believe that if Ripple, and it's not if, it's more of when Ripple goes public. Oh my God. Guys, XRP price, much lower, much, much lower. And the reason, because they're going to keep selling those shares. They're going to, their coins, their escrowed coins. They're going to keep selling it. They have 36 billion coins. At 229, I mean, think about that. 36 billion coins they own. Not million, billion. Times 229. That's $82 billion. This is more in dollars that Ripple owns in their coin than MicroStrategy owns. I think it's higher than the MicroStrategy market cap, actually. Let's actually look at that. MSTR, market cap, 114 billion. Okay, so it's close. It's not right there. But actually, it's Coinbase. Coinbase is, $90 billion. So Ripple has basically the market cap of Coinbase in XRP tokens that they could technically sell. 1 billion per month. So there's a lot happening in crypto. Pay attention to the spending bill. Pay attention to the debt ceiling. Because if these do not pass before the Congress recess in August, the beginning of August, that will mark the top of the market. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Don't forget to give the video a free thumbs up. I'll see you guys when I see you. And as always, invest responsibly and crypto on.